Yo, I am Stardust me whatever, and this is, what if Deku was an Uchiha Part 4. Uh, Let me say this on the last video. I do not appreciate y'all asking for that video, and then when the video came out, right, then y'all letting it flop. That was cold-blooded low-key. I'm gonna have to let this intro, go on for like a minute because for some reason the app that I use to record is acting up and it's tweaking, and I can't really snip it unless it's like a minute in, and some seconds. So, I guess I'm gonna say what I usually say near the end. If you guys enjoy these videos, like and share and subscribe or comment or whatever. The only real thing that I care about for real is y'all commenting and tell me what you do like about it and what you don't like about it. Now that doesn't mean come to my, comment section, thought that rah-rah going crazy. All I'm saying is I'm open to, you guys telling me what you think is a good touch and what you think is a bad touch. But that does not mean I want y'all to be yelling at me about, I don't like how this went. Nah. So look, right. If y'all want to talk to me, if y'all want to, know more about, the what ifs I'm probably going to do, join the Discord server, if you want to. And yeah, without a further ado, hit that intro. Alright, so look, right. Basically, Izuku kind of, wakes up, and, Recovery Girl is, there. As, for some reason, he realizes he's all healed, but he feels, really, 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 really tired. As, he looks over, and he sees Recovery Girl. As, when he sees Recovery Girl on some, he basically, kind of, in his head nerds out, but out loud he kind of says, what am I doing here? As, she basically says, oh, you basically, messed up your body after the whole entrance exam stuff, and you ended up breaking a bunch of bones inside of your arms and body. As, he kind of does remember, punching that robot full strength, which was probably not the best idea. As he kind of just looks at her, as he kind of, asks her, is the girl that he was trying to save okay? And she says, yeah. And she basically says, the girl actually put in a good word for him with everybody, and, said how he tried to, both you saved her and, made sure that she was okay, and didn't just try to save her and run away. Which got you even more points. First off, for saving people, and second off, for actually making sure the citizen was okay. Well, a fellow hero in this situation, but it still counted as, saving points. As, basically on some, while she's talking to him, she basically explains that you can't keep breaking up your body like this, because the worse the wound is, the less it's going to heal, depending on how bad it is. And also, it takes your stamina. So if you don't manage your stamina very carefully, and you keep having to come back here, you can end up dying. As Izuku kind of just is like, that sounds like a very bad downside, because, dying because he didn't manage your stamina is crazy. As, he just kind of decides to, shrug it off on some. And he kind of, gets up. And when he gets up, he does realize that, he feels drained. As when he does get up to go and leave, he kind of sees All Might burst through the door. As All Might says, young Midoriya. And when he says that, he kind of yells because that scared the hell out of him. As, All Might kind of just, looks at him as he's like, oh, sorry if I scared you. As he basically says, you did a very good job. As, he kind of says thank you on some, and he kind of asks why All Might is there. As All Might kind of, says that he wants to apologize for what he said last time about if you don't have a quirk, you can't, you know, you can't be a hero. But from what I'm seeing, it definitely seems like you do have a quirk. And from what I saw last time, so what was the point of asking me that question? As Izuku kind of just says, I don't know. That's the thing. Most of my life, I didn't have a quirk. But all of a sudden, it's like I gained these abilities. As All Might ends up, explaining to him that it might not be that you necessarily gain them. It might be a situation where, some people with quirks sometimes don't realize that, what is it called? That their quirks are one thing and they assume that it's another. Or they, assume that they don't have one at all. As he says, yeah, but it doesn't make sense. As he's like, why? Isn't it a strength-based quirk? As, he basically says, not necessarily. It's more like an emitter type quirk, if that makes sense. As, he kind of says that he has a energy inside of his body. And depending on how he controls that energy throughout his limbs, or even throughout his core, depends on how much damage he's actually able to do. Involving, hits. And also, it's kind of also, enhancement and emitter also. Because he says enhancement, my fault, for the, enhancing his body stuff. And he says that it might also be an emitter quirk because he was able to shoot fireballs from his mouth. Which, is a clear sign of an emitter quirk. As he says, but at the same time, it's also a mutation. As All Might's kind of confused because he didn't see anything. Like, he doesn't see anything actually mutated on Izuku. He doesn't see anything crazy like a tail or, like extra arms or, anything like that. As he kind of looks at him as he's like, what do you mean? As Izuku kind of ends up telling him, it's my eyes. As, All Might kind of, says he doesn't really notice anything wrong with his eyes. As when he says that, Izuku basically says, anytime that I get overly stressed or anytime that I focus chakra, or that's what I call it, chakra, into my eyes, it's like my vision gets a lot better. Not just to the point of, being able to see further and being able to see, better, but it seems like to a different scale, to a way more than human. It also makes me way faster, stronger, and more durable. Definitely not durable enough to take a bullet, but definitely durable enough to take a few hits from a person that would normally be considered stronger than me. The main thing that I notice is speed. As he kind of ends up, looking at his hand as he kind of says, the speed is unparalleled. I've never been that fast, even whilst using my chakra to boost myself. I've never been so fast that I can barely keep up with myself. As, All Might kind of, has a questioning look on his face. As he's like, along with that, I've noticed I can predict what people are able to do. As he's like, what do you mean? As he's like, for example, when I was doing the test, I tried activating, this eye ability to see if it had any other, secondary or even, third ability, right? And he said while I was doing it, while the person was writing, I could basically make out what they were writing about. As he ends up saying to him on some that, he basically is guessing that he can predict people's hand movements and like movements in general, like muscle movements, depending on what they're doing. So he says, I don't think it's necessarily future sight, but it definitely feels like it. The way that it goes about it is confusing. As he says, it's more or less like I can spell out the words from the way that their hand moves. Or from, see how they're about to, take their next step from the way that their legs move. And I can see muscles. As when he ends up saying that, he kind of says, congratulations, it seems like you have a very good quirk. As, All Might basically says, but you should probably never tell people half of the things that you can do. As Izuku is looking at him like, why is that? As he basically says, you have an emission-based ability, you have a enhancement-based ability, and you have a mutation-based ability. All of those at once. As Izuku kind of just realizes what he's saying is he's like, yeah, I guess that could make me a threat. As he says, yeah, and along with that, not just a threat to, people around you, making them want to outdo you. A threat to villains, if you ever were to encounter one. Which, since you said you want to be a hero, if you're able to actually get through UA, you will. As when he says this, it kind of, makes Izuku realize, like, this isn't a game. As Izuku kind of just gets up, as he's like, I guess you're right. As he says, it's not necessarily a guess, young Midoriya, it's a no. As he basically says on some that he needs to manage his abilities and also be careful with them. Because from what he says, his quirk activates through emotion. As he ends up saying, so that means if you're going through too much emotion, you can end up hurting someone. Or even potentially killing them if you don't use your abilities correctly. And actually train them properly. As, he kind of nods, realizing that All Might's right. And yeah, All Might, sorry, that's my alarm. All Might, awesome, basically, ends up, god dang, sorry, I'm thinking. All Might ends up bringing him out for food, and he goes back home after. And after about a day, he realizes he gets into UA, and yeah. Basically on some, after that whole thing happens, time skip like, a few days, right? And eventually, Izuku is walking, from home over to the school. As, flashback a little, Inko basically was, she was being kind of overbearing a little bit, but, at the same time, he's going to UA, the school for heroes. So, he kind of thinks of it, and he, kind of forgives her, because of course she's going to be overbearing about something like that. As when he's thinking that on some, he ends up, flashing back to reality. As he sees the doors, as he's like, what the heck? As he realizes, like, they're like 13 times the size of him. As he's like, are there like giants in the school or something? And that kind of intimidates him on some, because if there are, imagine how many people are stronger than him. And imagine how many people probably surpass him in terms of power. But he sucks up, all of that, frustration and, not frustration necessarily, but like all of that, nervousness, and he decides to push open the door, which are surprisingly light. As when he gets inside on some, he basically, continues to walk as he's, looking for class 1A. And when he eventually gets to it, he opens up the door. And as soon as he opens up the door, he literally sees Bakugo sitting and leaning back inside of a chair with his legs on the desk as Ida's yelling at him. What is it called? Some people in the back of the room looking at Ida and Bakugo like they're crazy. But, they kind of just end up, continuing their conversation with each other. And then he kind of, feels someone tap him on the shoulders. He turns around as he sees that brown-haired girl. As, she basically says, "Oh, hi." As when she says that on some, he kind of, blushes at the fact that, well, first off, she had seen him pass out and he didn't actually get to ask her name or anything, so he doesn't remember her. And last time that he saw her, he saved her. So, like, it basically looks like a situation of he saved her, but right after, like, he forgot her. Like she was just some random person. And along with that, he's also kind of embarrassed that she saw him inside of kind of a weak state. But, he's blushing out, like, out in the open, but his facial expression hasn't changed from, like playing. As he says, hi, as she says, "Oh, I forgot, you didn't actually get my name. I'm Ochaka Uraka, the girl that you just saved." As when she says that on some, he kind of, looks at her as he's kind of like, "Oh, hey, were you okay yesterday?" As she says, "Yeah, I wasn't damaged at all, actually." As she kind of says, "I have a gravity quirk, and I know what you're thinking. If I have a gravity quirk, why didn't I, use it to lift all of that rubble off of me?" Well, it was because I was under pressure. And whenever I'm under pressure, my abilities sometimes falter. Especially pressure of me, dying. As, he kind of looks at this, and he doesn't necessarily blame her because it makes sense. If he was going to die, he doesn't know if he'd think correctly either. But the only reason that he was actually able to save her the way that he was is because he was thinking about how his, how everybody said that he couldn't become something. And it wasn't necessarily that he did it on his own accord. It was more or less he did it because he was trying to prove someone wrong. And that kind of makes him feel bad because as far as what she thinks that, he saved her because he's heroic. And he's kind of, wondering if, she's kind of feeling like she's, like, weak or something because she wasn't actually able to, handle herself under pressure. As he ends up saying, "Yeah, that definitely makes sense. If I wasn't in that much pressure personally, I definitely also probably falter." As, he kind of, looks at her as he's like, there's nothing wrong with, basically being in a situation where you feel like you can't do anything because you're panicking. But the most important thing is to work on that so that whenever you are in situations like that, it doesn't happen. As when he says that, she kind of just smiles at him as she says, "You're really smart." As, he kind of blushes a little bit more, kind of, feeling like being a little bit bashful on some. As, she basically, says, "Thank you," and she kind of goes to turn as everybody kind of gets silent on some as from behind them they hear, "It took you 5 seconds to be quiet. This isn't gonna work." As everybody just yell as they see literally a dude that looks, I don't even know, like a bum standing inside of a sleeping bag. As he slowly unzips the sleeping bag, folds it over his arm, and walks behind the desk. As everybody's just kind of looking at him like he's crazy on some. As, except for Bakugo. Bakugo's just looking at him casually. As when this whole situation is going on, he basically says that he's their teacher. And, he kind of goes about the whole spiel of how, they're training to become, heroes and everything. And that they need to go to the locker rooms and get changed because they're about to do a quirk test on some. Well, a physical test and a quirk test. And when they say that on some, everybody kind of just goes to leave. And as they do, Izuku kind of ends up following. And he goes to also put on his 1A, uniform. As he ends up having to go through a few of the uniforms because I'm going to say all of these uniforms were made beforehand with certain, physiques being, measured by certain heroes or people. And they kind of realize Izuku, while he is kind of like, he looks small on the outside, he's actually way bigger in terms of muscle. So he ends up having to get a entirely different, what is it called? Outfit made for him, which ends up taking an extra 20 minutes. And yeah, after that whole situations, kind of goes on, everybody's just kind of looking at him because his physique is like way better than what it was inside of original canon. Not as in like he's like muscly and big, but like he's like his muscles are more prominent a little bit. Like he kind of has a sleeper build where if he like flexes, you can see his muscles, but like body based, he has a lot of muscles. I'm talking about like he has like that 8-pack type of training type of muscles. As you know, basically the teacher basically explains that, they all had a chance inside of junior high and other grades to throw, a ball and do physicals and everything like that without their quirks. But now it's time for all of you to do that with your quirks. As, when he says that, everybody kind of begins smiling, they kind of begin, celebrating because, they're happy to be able to actually use their quirks. As, basically, the teacher basically says, so you all think this is a game? As they kind of stop celebrating and everything. As, by the way, another one of my alarms is about to go off in like a minute. But they stop celebrating as, he basically ends up breaking down to them. You can die whilst being a hero. Do you think this is all about, about basically having fun? As they all kind of look at him like he's crazy as, they're like, nah, we were just happy that, we basically got to use our quirks. As, when he says that on some, he basically says, if any one of you fail this test, I will be expelling someone in this class. As, everybody's just kind of looking at him like he's crazy. As Ochako kind of says, you're going to expel people on the first day of school? As he says, yes. If you're not built to be a hero, if you're not built to be a hero, then you don't need to be a hero. As when he says that on some, everybody just kind of gets a little nervous. As, he basically, puts the ball in Bakugo's hand as he says, Ayo, Bakugo, give an example of what you're supposed to do and don't hold back. As, Bakugo kind of goes about, trying to blow them away and everything. As when he throws the ball on some, there's basically a giant, like, explosion. As the ball goes like 365.7 meters away. As they kind of all, look at him like he's crazy because who the heck could throw that way? And, as they go throughout the rest of the school day on some, they have the, race. Ida ends up still somewhat coming in first place. Izuku was right behind him. Everything else kind of goes to canon and everything. The side-to-side jumps, Izuku kind of just, also kind of stays the same as he does inside of canon. Because he can't really do anything to accelerate himself. And with chakra, he could, but he might end up jumping too far. And, they have the grip strength test and everything. And, when he kind of realizes he needs to lock in, he kind of, grabs the thing as he grips it as hard as he can using chakra enhancement. And as he does on some, they kind of see that he gets over 148 kg. As everybody's just kind of looking at him and that dude with the 4 arms kind of like they're crazy because a grip strength at that level, that is crazy. As, they do all the rest of the tests like in canon. And when it comes to the ball throw, Izuku kind of just realizes he can't hold back at all. As when he kind of grabs the ball on some, and, the teacher basically tells him to throw it, and if he fails, he will be expelled since he's gotten last in everything other than the grip strength in the race. So, basically, he kind of, pulls his arm back on some. And as he does, right, he basically throws the ball with all of his strength, kind of so hard that, like, the ball kind of says, like, it like, has, like, I don't know how to describe it, but it's like, you can hear it, like, the air resistance against the ball. That's how hard he throws the ball. As when the ball keeps going, he's like 456 meters. As Izuku kind of just smiles on some. As I ain't even gonna cap. I'm gonna say that the teacher inside of this canon, he wasn't gonna expel anybody either way on some. And he basically wanted to see if they would all try their best, which everybody did seem to do. And yeah, basically they all kind of go back inside and everything. And that's where I'm gonna leave this part. This is kind of like a filler thing, just so you guys know, like, everything that's going on. I'll do hero versus villain next time and a little bit of the USJ. If you guys enjoyed, hit the like button or subscribe if you want to. Comment to tell me what you actually want next. If you guys want any specific videos, as long as I know the animes or the worlds, I'll do it, most likely. Have a good day and try to be safe. Bye.